and I'll put in chat when we're live.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can officers advise, please, whether we're quorate?
Yes, we are quorate. We're missing a few.
That's okay then. Fine.
And then we'll chase them up once the meeting's underway.
Okay, thank you. Who is the Executive Member for Education, Libraries and Localism. So I'll just go on now to read our usual announcement. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the Council will be holding this meeting electronically in accordance with the relevant regulations. Members of the public may also attend this meeting in an electronic capacity, and there is a link on the Council's website for them to do so. Members of the Council are asked to keep their microphones switched off until called to speak, and to switch their microphones on once they have finished speaking. Cameras may be left on throughout the meeting if members wish, but could I say it's much easier for the management of the meeting if cameras are off. If you experience connection or other technical issues, it may help to switch off your camera. Cameras should be switched on if and when speaking in the meeting. To indicate a wish to speak, members should use the raise hand function, and use of the meeting chat function will be exclusively for voting. At the end of the debate on each item of business, there will be a vote. Members should vote using the chat function only by indicating for, against or abstain. I will declare the result after each vote. Well, hopefully there's just one vote today, but you never know. Breaks of at least 15 minutes will be held every 2 hours, and will be taken after a speaker in the debate has finished speaking. If we are voting, the vote will be concluded before the break is taken. Other breaks will be incorporated as appropriate. So today, membership changes. Many members are on both the Education and Children's panel, and you can only sit on one. They can only sit on one as one rep today. So we have substitutions. From the Children's panel, Dave Hewitt is substituting for Susan Brown. Thank you, Dave. Nigel Quinton is substituting for Karen Hastrick. Thank you, Nigel. And under Education, Michael Muir is substituting for Alan Plancy. Thank you, Michael. Ron Tyndall is substituting for Mark Watkin. Thank you, Ron. And Steve Jarvis is substituting for Anthony Rowland. So thank you, Steve. I have apologies from Caroline Clapper. Now, I'm just going to work through, we have 25 members attending today, so I'm just going to work through the list of members so everybody's aware of who is here, okay? So for the Labour group, we have Nigel Bell, who is the lead spokesperson on children, young people and families, Lynn Chesterman, Judy Billing, who's a Labour group leader, and Asif Khan. For the Lib Dems, we have Nigel Quinton, Anthony Rowlands, Mark Watkin, who's the lead member for Children's Services, Nigel Hollinghurst, Steve Jarvis and Ron Tyndall. For the Conservative group, we have John Graham, Dee Hart, Leslie Greensmith, myself, of course, Tina Howard, Graham McAndrew, Alan Plancy, Annie Brewster, Terry Duras, Michael Hearn, Jeff Jones, Mark Mills-Bishop, Michael Muir, Richard Thake and Dave Hewitt. I don't think I've forgotten anybody, but obviously as members put their hands up to speak, they can introduce themselves at that time. Is it a point of order, Judy?
It's a point of information that I'm also the Labour group spokesperson on education. It doesn't matter, but I just thought I'd...
Yeah, no, you've told us now. Thank you very much. My knowledge of education panel is not as great as my knowledge of children's, so I apologise. Members' interests. To remind members that they must declare a pecuniary or declarable interest if a matter arises during the meeting that has not been noted before. Public petitions, there are none. So today we have Simon Newland, Assistant Director for Education, who will be presenting to panel in relation to the additional guidance that we've received to the government and the work that's already gone on. So Simon, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Terry. I'll just share a presentation on screen, which I shall be working through. So that should come up in just a second. And I'd like to introduce my officer colleagues at the same time as myself, as Terry's introduced me. Juliet Whitehead within Children's Services, who's working particularly on the free school meals aspect of the programme. Felix Godding in Children's Services and Jackie Albury, an Adult Services colleague. And they are looking at the wider non-free school meals aspect of what we're doing. So I'm going to start off my presentation and then I'll be handing over to them for their little pieces as we go through. And as Terry said, we thought it would be helpful to do this because the situation's been evolving very rapidly since the government first announced its programme, and our implementation plans have started to develop. So things have happened since the point at which papers were issued. So just to remind you, this session is predominantly about the Winter Grant Scheme, but that sits in the context of two other measures which the government has brought forward to deal with or to contribute to dealing with some of the issues caused by coronavirus. And the second one is the Holiday Activities and Food Programme, which will start in April of next year, and picks up, if you like, where the winter grant scheme leaves off. And then the third element is an increase in the Healthy Start grant voucher payments, which are weekly payments to parents in receipt of eligible benefits who have children below the age of 4. So there are various different aspects of which this programme is one. Councillor Heritage has mentioned the allocation to Hertfordshire of £2.5 million, and there are considerable constraints on how that funding is to be used. I've set them out in the paper, and I won't go through what I've got on screen, but we have been receiving fairly regular updates from the Department of Work and Pensions, DWP, which is the sponsoring department for this. And most recently conference calls yesterday and final guidance late last week. But that final guidance and the conference calls are now mostly about what you might call the administrative details of the programme, the management information that's required, which is quite onerous, and the kind of articulation of the constraints. But broadly, the large bulk of the programme is aimed at families with children, and the large bulk of the programme is aimed at food, energy and water bills. And there are various things that we're not allowed to spend money on, and those are largely housing related costs and advice and support. We have prioritised the component of the programme in Hertfordshire which relates to providing vouchers to children eligible for free school meals for the Christmas and February half term, and you'll be familiar with the discussion about that at Council. But this panel report is giving effect to that decision, and Juliet is going to talk in a minute about how we're planning to roll that out. I did want to make absolutely clear that what we're aiming this at is those children who are eligible for free school meals by reason of their entitlement to various benefits, and not those who are eligible for the universal free infant meal entitlement, which is for children in years reception 1 and 2. So these are people who are children who are eligible by reason of benefits, not by age. And within the years reception 1 and 2, of course, there's children who are eligible by reason of benefits, and all the rest are eligible by reason of age. So it's that cohort. So we've prioritised that because we need to get that out really very urgently. We are working on a wider range of programmes to support families and children, and there's an element of the programme, no more than 20%, which can be directed towards vulnerable adults. And Felix and Jackie are going to talk about that in a moment. But one thing that we do need to develop and document is an eligibility framework which sets out who we're intending to target and what we're intending to do. And I thought I'd put a slide up about some of the data on the numbers of clients or people that we would have, if you like, in the frame to support. And there are currently 23,500 children entitled to free school meals in schools, and another 800 in FE colleges, and we're proposing to support both of those groups. And the numbers there are changing weekly. There's been a very substantial year-on-year increase in free school meal numbers, as you can imagine, as a consequence of rising unemployment. And we think those numbers will continue to increase as we go through to Easter. Those, of course, exclude children under the age of 5. And depending on how you work your definitions, there's about 15,000 infants who we also need to consider how we prioritise and how we target that infant group. Those are infants with a measure of deprivation. Within the totals here are around 4,000 families with benefit caps who are capped in benefit terms, and that can be housing benefit cap, or it could be universal credit, and there's a range of reasons why families can be benefit capped. But within that group are some of the families which face the most acute financial challenges, and we need to make sure that those people who are really short of money are in our sites. We have 750 care leavers who are eligible for support, and there are a range of other ways of, if you like, cutting the data and looking at categories of people who may be in need. I wanted now to hand over to Juliet, who will talk to you about where we've got to with delivering our free school meals eligible programme. Juliet.
Thank you, Simon. Along with many other local authorities, we've developed a supermarket voucher scheme for the children to receive food vouchers during the next 2 terms. And the free school meal allocation will be as follows: £30 in total per child for Christmas and £15 in total per child for the February half term. We're aware that some schools may be running for slightly longer periods over Christmas, but in terms of actually making it as simple as possible, we have gone for the £30 in total per child for Christmas. That's how we've decided to deliver the funding. Simon has already set out the criteria, but just to go over that again. So the infant pupils whose parents and carers are on a low income would be eligible for free school meals. They're included, and as Simon stated, not children who have the wider universal infant free school meal support. In addition, as Simon has noted, students entitled to free school meals studying at the 4 Hertfordshire FE colleges aged 16 to 18 years will receive vouchers, and also children with no recourse to public funding will also be eligible, as they were under the government's free school meal voucher system earlier this year. Simon, can you move the next slide on? Not sure I can do it.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. So HCC has commissioned Family Fund Trust to manage the process for buying and sharing digital vouchers for a range of supermarkets. Family Fund Trusts are a charity and have lots of experience running voucher schemes on behalf of LAs, charities and housing associations. They also have a current contract with Hearts Help, ordering food vouchers, Argos vouchers and PayPoint cash vouchers on behalf of Hearts Help. And they have a long-standing contract with Hearts Help. It's over 10 years and are viewed by Hearts Help as good and reliable. Families will be able to choose from to download their vouchers without completing any forms. And they will have a choice of the following supermarkets: Asda, Morrison's, Tesco's and Sainsbury's. One of the key issues for HCC in developing this system is email addresses, which are required for Family Fund Trust to send out the vouchers. Although HCC has email addresses for some families that have successfully applied for free school meals, these may be very out of date, as families may have applied some time ago and changed their email addresses since they made their original application. In addition, some parents may have phoned the help desk and done an application through that route without having to provide an email address. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, to collect accurate individual email addresses for the parent or carer for every child entitled to free school meals across Hertfordshire is just not realistic in the time frame. So therefore we're asking schools to use their school admin address for all entitled children to help with the distribution of vouchers to the families. So Family Food Trust will send out vouchers to the schools, and then the schools will forward to families using the parent-carer email. Obviously, the schools will have accurate email addresses, and that seems the sensible and most straightforward way of doing it. For those parents that won't have an email address, or may struggle to actually do the process, the schools will be able to redeem and print off the vouchers on their behalf and then put them in collection or post those out to the families. In terms of the timetable, HCC will download the data we hold for those children and young people entitled to free school meals on the 30th of November. So this will be checked and sent to Family Food Trust on the 4th of December. So what we will do is we will use the data that we already hold, and that comes from the autumn term school census as at the 1st of October 2020. And we will also have a separate run with successful applications for free school meals after that date up until the 30th of November. For any applications that are made after the 30th of November, these will be picked up by HCC, and we will make sure that those parents are emailed directly after, as soon as we have that information. So we will do another run of data, and that we will ensure that we will have all of the correct email addresses for those parents that are applying after the end of after the 30th of November. So all of that data we will work on, make sure it fits in with the Family Fund Trust data fields, and that will be sent to them on the 4th of December. It only takes one day to turn that around. So voucher emails will be sent to schools on the week commencing the 7th of December. And that should give us enough time before the end of term to sort out if there are any issues with perhaps emails bouncing back. There shouldn't be, because we will be using the school admin addresses. That just gives us a little bit of leeway in terms of time. There will also be a help desk and provided by Family Fund Trust and HCC contact email for schools if they have any questions. Thank you. That's me finished.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Felix Gilding, and I'm helping to lead in terms of the wider support from the programme for households with children. This is kind of an area which has a range of different groups potentially in scope, and what we're aiming to do here is to make sure that each of these offers can interlink, also support our adults colleagues, but especially wanting to work closely with districts and borough colleagues. What you can see on screen is a rough overall allocation of the original award to Hertfordshire that we have for this initiative, and some of the main cohorts that we are considering at the moment and developing support mechanisms for. I think two of the main ones here are the families with benefit caps, which Simon first alluded to, and our objective here is to use our pre-existing ties with districts via the Families First service to provide support for these families in terms of their bills, but also not just giving them that financial support, but also linking them into financial advice and additional support to help them in the longer term. I think the other major area are families with infants, and this is a dual approach being led by our Family Centre service, which works very closely with the voluntary and local community sector, again looking at bill support. Then a third element of this is looking at our kind of universal food support offer, especially for those individuals who may not be in the free school meal voucher entitlement group. This at the moment is looking at an overall enhanced support for the food bank network across Hertfordshire in each district and borough, but also adding additional funding to that to target particular user groups, especially families with infants. I think a key objective, especially on the food bank element, is making sure we work really closely with our adult colleagues and our district colleagues to make something as effective as possible.
Good morning. So I'm Jackie Aubrey, and I'm currently working as the Assistant Director for Planning and Resources in Adult Care, and I've been involved in this project. We're working closely as part of this project, developing options for households without children who are in a vulnerable situation over the winter. An indicative amount of the grant in terms of the 20% is about £500,000 is what's being sort of worked on in terms of an approach for this area. And the areas that we've identified so far of groups of people that we want to support are those young people who are being supported through Hearts Young Homeless. And we have a proposal at the moment to support, they have around 2,500 young people that they're supporting with potentially a £10 food voucher at Christmas is our proposal at the moment. We're also looking at homeless adults and looking to support around 500 homeless people with food and with new home startup costs. And in particular, looking at enhancing the existing Hearts Help Crisis Intervention Service pathway, which has been really successful through the which is part of our normal offer, but which we've enhanced through our response to COVID, and we're looking to enhance that even further. And that has the advantage of offering immediate support in terms of vouchers for food and help with energy, but also can signpost families in crisis or individuals in crisis financially to other areas of support, such as the Citizens Advice Bureau, to money advice, and to ensure that those families are claiming all the benefits to which they're entitled, and gives them a slightly longer support. We're looking at the universal food support, and as Felix said, working with districts very closely through the links that we have made very successfully through the VPAC offer over the sort of whole of this year so far, but in terms of offering additional support to the food banks across the county, and working obviously with those to support both households with and without children through that support. And then looking at basically thinking about how we enhance the volunteering and people assistance cell, the VPAC support that we've done over the summer, in order to target support to vulnerable people, households with and without children. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. That brings us to the end of the presentation.
Again, sorry, forgot to put my microphone on. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for that presentation. Really very informative. Okay, I have some hands up. So can I go with Graham McAndrew first, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I do agree with you. It was a very informative report. And thanks to Simon, Juliet, Felix and Jackie for pulling it together. And for all the hard work, it is multi-agency, it is multi-department and it is multi-authority. And to bring all these different agencies together in such a short period of time for the outcome has been an exceptional piece of work led both by yourself and Councillor Douris. My main question is on the provision of vouchers. I'm very keen on broadband across the county of Hertfordshire, and I was heartened to see that the schools are being deployed to actually distribute the vouchers electronically because they've got the email addresses. And I imagine that if a child hasn't, or a family hasn't got an email address, the school would actually download the vouchers and give it to the child. Would that be the case? That's all from me.
Sorry, shall I answer that, Councillor Heritage? It's Juliet Whitehead speaking.
Okay, Juliet. Well, I think you actually said in the presentation, didn't you, that that's what schools would be doing if parents weren't able to access a printer or didn't have the internet or something went wrong with their phone or whatever, the school would be there to support. I suppose the question to ask, though, is what if that problem occurs, Juliet, after school breaks up? Can you respond to that? Or do you have an answer yet? You might not have the answer yet, of course.
Well, we're hoping, because we will have given the vouchers out the week commencing the 7th of December, that hopefully that should ensure that parents have time to have downloaded the vouchers themselves in advance. We will ensure that there is, as I said, there's a family fund trust technical help desk, and we will have an email address for queries for HCC purposes. We will also have a blank load, I think it's 500 vouchers that we will print off and have secured safely. Either they will be delivered by post if they're physical, or we'll have an email secure place to hold them, so that if there are issues, we will be able to send out those vouchers direct after schools have closed. So we have got a backup plan. So we will have some spare vouchers in place.
That's very good news. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
and we will not be charged for those if those are not used or redeemed.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. So we've got a number 2 plan, which is always good, I think Terry Duras would say. Yeah. Great, thank you. So can I remind members, if you want to ask a question, to raise your hand, not write in chat, because that's what I'm looking at for questioning. So I now have Richard Thake, please.
Oh dear.
You there,
Right.
Richard?
Can you hear me? Yeah, yes, I was
Yes,
struggling to get the microphone on. Can I just echo the thanks that Graham enunciated in respect of the work that the teams have put in on this. Clearly a lot of work, and thanks for that. My query, actually, Madam Chairman, is a very simple one. The Oxford English Dictionary translation of the word redeem means to cash in. I don't think that the language used in Juliet's presentation about redeeming equates with what the common understanding is. Do we mean redeem? Does that mean that the school can actually cash in those vouchers, or is that just a misquoted word?
Juliet?
Sorry. They'll have a code for each email. So each individual child will receive an email that then will be either forwarded direct to the parent. It will be redeemed as, so that the parent will have to go on and link in and download the actual voucher. In terms of the schools, yet they will download it, and they will put they can print off the voucher and put it in either the post or the book bag, or whatever means of sending the voucher home. I mean, this is the system that is used by most of the voucher systems that exist in this country. So I'm not quite sure that I understand what you're asking. Sorry.
So I think I understand. So Richard, what you're saying is, can people get cash, or do they have to get shopping?
No. In Juliet's presentation, Madam Chairman, it clearly said the schools can redeem. Well, essentially that indicates that the schools can cash the vouchers in.
No,
I just think
no.
it's an incorrect use of the word redeem.
All right, accepted. No, the schools will forward it to the parents, and the parents can redeem. The parents have to choose which supermarket they will be shopping at, and then it goes from there.
I did understand that, but the presentation,
okay,
should we say, is erroneous in that perhaps that word ought to be altered.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Common parlance, but there we go. Mark Mills Bishop, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. I should declare an interest at the beginning. I am Deputy Cabinet Member for Education. Also, my wife is a primary school teacher. My son is a primary school head teacher, and I'm a director of Dame Alice Owen's School. My question actually is to Juliet, and perhaps it also applies to Felix. is there a backup plan for those children that qualify for free school meals who come on to the system who are not presently on the system for free school meals, and likewise for hardship families as well? Because between now and February, there may be families and children that fall into entitlement to free school meals and also the hardship fund. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Do you want me to answer, Councillor Heritage?
Yes, thank you, yes.
So, Mark, thank you for your question. In terms of the cut-off date, we will so once we've sent the report on the 4th of December to Family Fund Trust, we are aware that obviously from the 30th of November there will be new applications made online. I think at the moment it's the numbers are rising every day. So we will have that data through the applications that are made to the team that look after the family, the free school meals application process here at HCC. We will constantly be running that data, and as soon as somebody it becomes entitled or eligible for free school meals, they will be added to our list and they will automatically receive the free school meals. So there will be nobody that will be missed off. We will have plans in place for those that after the cut-off date in terms of the data download that we're doing with the schools, we will have a process in place to pick those up. So please, yes, be reassured that they will receive vouchers.
Good.
Okay, thanks, Juliet. Nigel, you did have your hand up earlier, but it disappeared. I don't know if we've lost you from the meeting. Did you want to ask something?
Yes, I'd like to comment, Chair, and ask. Sorry, I did put my hand up and then I took it down because I thought you'd noted it.
Oh, I had. Yeah, no, that's fine. It just went away, then others kept flopping up at me, so that's fine. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Yeah, can I just say thank you again for all the hard work that clearly the officers have had to do at very short notice. You know, we may have political differences, but the officers have done as well as they could. We recognise the urgency of getting underway the delivery of the vouchers electronically for the Christmas holidays for all those eligible children. And of course, we urge that all available means are used to publicise the vouchers for the most vulnerable so they don't miss out. And Graham, you raised one of my questions earlier about the issue of if parents don't have emails, either hadn't had them or don't have them at all. But the fact that you're going to use the school roll and school admin clearly is the most appropriate way of doing it now in this short time. And also we welcome the fact that you're trying to get in as many free school meals eligibility as you can now, the 23,535, and I note it's changing all the time, the 800 in the FE colleges, and to cover those 4 colleges we've got in the county for those aged 16 to 18. So that's obviously all very good. And obviously we, politically, of course, we'd like to see free school meals throughout the holidays throughout the end of next year. But can I just raise something on that was good, the reports we've had, and they're very instructive. Can I mention a couple of points from the equality impact assessment? Maybe someone can come back on that.
Yep.
So obviously on the equality and impact assessment, it says that you hope that by mid-December you're confident that there'll be the cross-referencing of free school meals, and also with families with SEND and those who are clinically vulnerable, that they'll be in place, by mid-December. Also on page 10 of the Equality Impact Assessment, you say again that there should be a range of measures, including translation and engagement with community and ethnic groups, to also be in place by mid-December. So are we confident on that, knowing the a diverse amount of ethnic groups who don't speak English as a first language, maybe, and ethnic groups and organisations who we need to get in touch with? And obviously, I note before you mentioned the working with local districts, and that's obviously going to come into play here in trying to make sure that those who are vulnerable and maybe aren't in touch, whether they're ethnic groups or others, that should be made sure that they, officers get in touch with them. And it says that they hope that this is all done by mid-December. Can we have an assurance on that? And again, I recognise it's been very short notice for officers.
Simon, are you the person to answer this one, or is it Juliet?
I think this one I might hand over to Felix.
Okay.
And he will be able to talk about the interactions we're developing with districts as well, I think. But I think he's familiar with EQIA.
Yes, thank you, Simon. Thank you, Councillor. I think it's a really important question, and it gets to the heart of making sure that this offer is fully accessible for those who need it. I think there's a range of mitigations that we've got in place to go against those risks that we first identified. Beyond the close working with district councils and working very closely with schools who know these families, we're also working very closely with our comms lead within the organisation in terms of what communications do we need to have targeted to particular user groups. So that could be looking at particular localities that are especially deprived. It could also be looking at potentially literature that might be needed in a different language, to make sure, as you say, that all those different groups, be they have barriers in terms of what language they are proficient in, or maybe their cognitive abilities, have absolutely the right support to know when this offer is occurring, how they can get support in accessing it, because it's really, really integral to what we're doing.
Okay, so thanks for that, and you're happy that in working with districts you'll have that in place at the time you say in the report?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for now, Chair.
I think, Nigel, you just have to accept that at the moment, I think all colleagues do, that it's a very difficult working environment at the moment. So we're all doing our best to keep in touch with everybody, but the teams have been working exceptionally hard, and I know that they are talking to our districts, our family centres, our schools. So, you know, the whole system is pulling together. So I'm quite confident. Thank you very much. So thank you for your questions on that one. Right, Jeff Jones, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. And thanks, officers, for the presentations. Yeah, a lot of work's obviously gone into this, and it was all very clear. I just had two questions, really getting back to the physical vouchers. Is there a facility? I mean, you're talking about they get their voucher hard copies from the schools. Is there a facility, maybe a barcode or something on it, that parents can take that to the supermarket and without printing it off? See what I mean? It's on their phone, which you know a lot of people are doing now, of course. Does that facility exist? And of course, it does encourage you know, us going paperless. That's what we're always trying to do. And the second question was the list of participants, Asda, Morrison, Tesco, Sainsbury's. Is there any flexibility on that? Because just thinking in my division, yes, we have a Sainsbury's. It's one of the reduced size, what do they call them, express or local or whatever they are. But we do have a co-op that's widely used, probably a larger store with its own car park. And I'm just thinking of the more rural villages that use Buntingford as a centre for their shopping. It just gives them the one option, Sainsbury's. I just wondered, is there any flexibility on it?
Juliet?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. With regard to the barcode, yes, there is a barcode. So as soon as they receive the email, they can forward it to their phone and use the barcode. Yeah. In terms of your second question about flexibility with regard to the supermarkets, unfortunately not at this point in time. We've had to just work with the Family Fund Trust. We you know, it's a very, very tight timescale. So there are only those 4 supermarkets that we can utilise at the moment. I mean, my only point would be whether they could be used for online shopping, and I'm guessing that they could be. So that might be one way around this system, if they have email facilities at home, whether they could utilise them towards that means of shopping. But I'd have to just check that with Family Fund Trust and get back to you on that one.
Thanks very much, Julia.
I think, Jeff, just adding here, and I'm just talking off the top of my head now, that I think these are the generally used supermarkets,
yes,
and I think these are the ones that have been used in the past, and I think families have managed. I don't know if Terry Duras, do you have any more information than that from previous voucher systems?
Yes, in terms of the voucher system that was used during the summer holidays, which was managed completely by the Department for Education, they started out with the 4 major supermarkets, if you don't mind me referring to them like that, that are in the list now. They did eventually get some other supermarkets on board, but I understand that that was quite a long drawn out procedure with a fair level of negotiation, and given the fact that we have had to be working at pace with the Family Fund Trust, it's simply not been possible to do that on this occasion, but it's something that I'm sure Juliet will be exploring with the Family Fund Trust, and it is possible, and I make no promises at all, that there may be an expanded number of supermarkets available for the February half term, but I make no promises about that at all.
Okay, thanks for that. If I can just a comment on that, Terry. In my division, I have probably, I think, there's just over 200 children entitled to free school meals. So there's going to be 200 usages, let's say, at our small Sainsbury's. That's all I would say. It's a reduced size Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
So there's quite a high demand there.
Yeah, so what you have to remember, Jess, is this: we're doing this on scale, and it's quite difficult to sometimes drill down. But in the time that we have, this is the best we can do. So, as I said, things may change for February, but we don't know at this point in time. But we will keep you advised on that one. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Anthony Rowland, please.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm not sure whether I'm getting the camera working, but I'll plough on. Hear you. Yeah, no, plough on. Look, I echo the gratitude others expressed to colleagues for all the work they've done. Two comments and 2 questions. First comment, just relating to the conversation we've just had. And within the division I represent, there is quite a substantial co-op which sits in an area where there probably are going to be people who might be using the vouchers. So I guess I'm sure there are colleagues on the call who will know more about the location of co-ops, but that does seem to be an omission which I find quite surprising. Secondly, in terms of schools, there's clearly a lot of work for schools here. I just speak as someone who donkey's years ago spent a couple of decades teaching, and I know that the last 2 or 3 weeks of the autumn term, i.e. towards Christmas, are amongst the most challenging for all schools. So we're asking them to do something else at a time when they're already going to be very weary, but I'm sure they'll rise to the challenge. 2 questions. One, this does relate to something Nigel was asking, but I take it a bit further on regarding a particular group, which is the home educated, where there's been a really steep rise in the number of home educated children, and there's clearly a correlation between anxiety of parents, withdrawal from school, and the vulnerability of those children, their need for support. And I just wonder if an officer could comment on how optimistic we are that children won't slip through the net through this route. And then second question would be just to ask, probably it's Felix, just a number of references to the role of district councils, though those were linked to the family centres, they're clearly county related, but just in terms of connection and working with district councils to try and support what's being rolled out. I'd just be interested in sort of slightly more general comments about what connections your officers are making. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Just in relation to the omission of the co-op by the company that we're using, obviously they've chosen not to use the co-op. I have to say I'm quite surprised that they're not working with the co-op, but perhaps that's something that we can have discussions about anyway. Simon.
One possible solution, sorry, Councillor Heritage, for maybe the February one is that we can also use something.
Fine. Juliet, I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Simon, could you comment please on schools, working with schools?
Yes. And yeah, so I mean, we are really concerned about the workload on schools, and schools are really feeling the strain, as I'm sure we all appreciate. But they, in general, are equally committed to what we're trying to do in terms of supporting their vulnerable families. So Juliet has, if you like, road tested the idea with quite a number of schools to make sure that they think it's feasible, and indeed the methodology that we've worked up, she worked up in consultation with them. So we think that we will be okay in terms of the schools. I mean, I am concerned that there will be one or two who say we just can't manage it, and there may be one or two who, let's say, are kind of closed due to coronavirus at the critical time, and that's partly why we need our kind of backup to be able to deliver stuff directly. But as long as it's only a small number, we can work around. If it was 20,000, we couldn't. In terms of elective home educated families, well, children who are electively home educated are not eligible for free school meals at the moment. Well, they don't receive free school meals at the moment, so they don't fall into that eligibility group. But what we would try to do is make sure that we capture in our wider work with vulnerable families, any vulnerable families who happen to have electively home educated children. And there are other like kind of subgroups that we're also looking at, children who don't happen to be on roll at a mainstream school, for example. So hopefully within the wider sweep of what we do, we will pick up anybody who is electively home educated. But I think, as Felix has said, making sure we do identify and get to everybody in need is one of our particular challenges. I think the next issue raised was in relation to a little bit more about how we're working with district colleagues. And maybe Jackie, I don't know if you've got something to say about the way VPAC works, which might contribute to that.
I may bring in my colleague who's also on the call, Christy Thacker, who's got the detailed information about how we're working with districts through VPAC. So we've developed a really close working relationship in terms of supporting vulnerable people through the initial lockdown, and we're working with them and we meet with them at the moment on a weekly basis, and we're keeping them in the loop in terms of our proposals in terms of supporting vulnerable families and adults. And we're talking to them at all levels of the district. So we're talking at the sort of chief exec level and the people on the ground doing the support, and making sure that we've identified the groups that they are aware of in terms of vulnerability, and in particular looking at the information that they have in terms of the families that are on benefit caps, and those that are struggling, because they have quite a lot more information on that in terms of that. And I don't know if Christy, if you wanted to say anything else in terms of our working with districts.
Sorry, I would just, let me put my camera on, sorry. Just to add that we've worked with them when we received the DEFRA grant earlier as well, around supporting vulnerable families under crisis intervention service, and that's worked really well. And with the support that we've given for food banks, again via the district. So the support that we give, financial support that we've given to food banks, has all been via the district's relationships. So it is a strong relationship, and has done really well so far. And like Jackie said, we're meeting weekly, so we're able to pick up any issues that have come up and discuss them in that group.
Okay, thanks. Just for me, here's my ignorance now. Simon referred to VPAC. What does that mean?
It's the Volunteering People and Assistance Cell. It was one of the cells that was set up by the SCG at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, I had heard of that. It's just the VPAC. I thought I'd better just check because other colleagues might not have done. So thank you very much for that. So I think you see, colleagues, that we are working very closely with all of our partners. The whole system is working together for the benefit of our residents. So hopefully those have answered your questions, Anthony. Can I now call Ron Tyndall, please?
Sorry, Teresa, I've had a bit of a problem with my sign-in. Teresa, yeah, first of all, a quick query. When Juliet answered Graham's
question. She referred to emergency email address, but there was no mention of any telephone number. Now, we were talking about those without an email service. So is there an emergency telephone number that parents can ring if they are having problems? That's one question. And then my second question is really going to the heart of the matter about Easter. Easter starts on the 2nd of April next year, which is 2 days after the government's funding ends and the new financial. So we have no idea what's going to happen about it, but it means that we could have a situation where the government aren't funding it. And then, of course, the Chancellor has just announced that universal credit extra money is going to be stopped about that time. So there could be actually a perfect storm of no vouchers and no extra £20 a week on universal credit. So I wonder, is it possible that we could consider making a recommendation to Cabinet that for the Easter holiday, the council actually makes plans to pick up the cost, even if the government doesn't fund it?
So, Ron, I'm sure somebody will put me right if I'm wrong on this one, but I think the administration has already said that it will deal with free school meals for Easter and the summer half term.
I'd just like to have that confirmed because, as I say,
it came through at council, didn't it?
Teresa, if I may interject.
Yeah, thank you.
Ron, if you look at the paper on the front page under summary 2.1, it actually notes the resolution at council on the 17th of November, and I will quote, "This council also pledges to extend this commitment to the Easter and summer half-term holidays in 2021. So I think that answers your question.
Lovely, thanks very much. It was just the extra concern, given the Chancellor's statement yesterday, that
but we'd beaten him to it, Ron. We'd beaten him to it.
Okay, thank you.
Juliet, could you just respond to an emergency telephone number, please? We might not actually have got that far yet, but just what you know so far. We may have lost Juliet. Felix, are you able to help? Oh, you're here.
I am here now, sorry. So,
that's all right.
Yeah, we haven't got as far as an emergency telephone number at the moment. We are working as quickly as we can in a tight timescale. I mean, obviously until the end of term, if the parents are having issues with the download of the voucher, they will have to go back to their school in the first instance, who will then contact HCC, and we will be able to either go direct to Family Fund Trust, or we will have a set of frequently asked questions that we can work through. We will share that with families. We will also share communications from Family Fund Trust so that they, so parents have as much information as possible in downloading. It's a straightforward system that has worked with other local authorities delivering hardship funds earlier on in the year, and you know, other local authorities. So I think we are confident that it should be a fairly straightforward thing for parents to do. In terms of after the end of school, well, parents will be obviously, or carers will be obviously making their application through the Hertfordshire County Council's free school meal eligibility tool, and there are contact details and telephones on that website, or if they phone the team up, they should be able to help them. The other aspect, of course, is the general, we've been very in close contact with Michael Francis and his customer services team, and again they will be up to speed on the voucher system as well.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the officers for all their hard work.
Thank you very much. So we are working up a communication programme. We're not quite there yet, so we will do in the next week, I should imagine, and that will be shared with members. Could I ask Nick Hollinghurst, please?
Thank you. I'd like to pick up on what Jeff Jones said some time back. I'm concerned about the rigidity of the system being available only for vouchers to be used in 4 supermarkets. I would have thought in this day and age that IT could be used to extend access, not to restrict it. Computer doesn't know whether it's dealing with a big supermarket or a small village shop. And the point I'm making is very similar to his, that we not take into account the difficulty of access that some people experience in rural settings. We mustn't forget 20% of Hertfordshire households do not have access to a motor car, and that is still the case. On the other hand, if we extended the scheme to take in designated shops that could be trustworthy, we've got a raft of village shops run by volunteers in most small villages across the county. And the other thing is, if the vouchers could be handed over to some sort of a middleman, the village shop could in fact be a useful point at which they could sort of pool the demand. The communication between the schools and families with deprivation in villages is usually very, very good indeed. But I'm not convinced that so many people are going to find it easy to use IT. You need a certain amount of expertise to use this scheme and then get themselves to a supermarket in town, which might be quite difficult. If we could localize this by a more imaginative use of technology and bring in trusted small shops in villages, this would be very helpful.
Yeah, so Nick, as we've already said in previous discussions, we're limited by the number of supermarkets we can use because the provider of the vouchers, those are the supermarkets that organisation works with. I quite accept that those shops aren't everywhere. So that's where we are at this moment for the Christmas period, the Christmas holidays. As I've said before, we're looking at what we can do for the rest of the year, as it were. So we will definitely look at other supermarkets and other ways of redeeming the vouchers. So taken on board, but actually we've had a very short space of time to get this working. And I'm sure that if there are problems that families have, that we can work with the schools to sort it out for them. So that I'll have to sort of shut that one down. I understand the concern that members may have about rural communities, but we really do have to say this is what we can deliver at this moment in time, and for the future we will be working on something else. Completely accept that the schools have good communications with the parents, and I'm sure in those smaller rural village schools there will be some form of support as well. So, I mean, that's where we are. We can't do anything about it at this moment in time. So I noted, but thank you.
Okay, I understand. Can I ask a quick, do the vouchers have to be presented personally, or can a third party intervene?
Juliet.
Thank you, Chair. Once they have been downloaded, they could be used by a third party on behalf of the parent and carer who has downloaded the voucher.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so a grandparent or somebody known to the family could be able to use it. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. So Mark Watkin, please.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just getting myself organised. First of all, can I absolutely reiterate my thanks and our group's thanks, and I think everyone's thanks, to the officers for the remarkable work that they have done so far. It's extraordinary how detailed their presentation was, and under the circumstances, I think they are to be congratulated, absolutely. I have a couple of questions, and I will at the end want to make a suggestion to amend one of the, to add a couple of recommendations to the meeting, but can I come back to those later? I think it's probably better to carry on in the, if you like, the scrutiny side before we come back to that, if that's okay with you.
Yes, if you could please, Mark, because Nigel's got some as well, so we need to consider them together. So if you're able to type an email and send to me, after you've spoken. That would be really useful.
And I can assure you they're not hostile. A couple of practical questions about the vouchers. What is the life of the voucher? Are they very time driven? That is to say, a Christmas holiday voucher has to be used by the 1st of January or some such date. And secondly, on the same sort of subject, can they be claimed retrospectively? A family who was eligible, we're working, for example, on an 80% take up. Well, if a family who's not very organised gets their act together but realises they were eligible in the holiday but didn't do anything about it till January, have they lost their chance to have that voucher? And then on a more, no one's talked about the overhead costs, and I know it's hard to estimate what they will be, but I do understand that the fund has to cover all the overhead costs. So I'd be interested to get some idea of officers of where, what we think all this is going to cost on top of what we're giving out to the families. And then the other question, which I raised with Simon, was how do we deal with our children who live in Watford, I beg your pardon, in Hertfordshire, but are educated in neighbouring LEAs? What is the system for getting them vouchers? And is there a quid pro quo? Presumably Essex is working on something similar for their children, and their children could be educated in schools in Bishop Stortford or wherever. So those are my 4 questions as the situation stands. Thank you.
Okay. So Juliet, can you answer the operational type questions, and then Simon, I'll come back to you for out of county. Juliet.
So thank you, Mark. In terms of the vouchers, when the initial link is received, the beneficiary will have 2 months to redeem their voucher. So that answers that one. In terms of the retrospective, I think I'm going to hand that over to Simon.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can send out vouchers to families based on their circumstances at the time, and when they redeem them. Well, let's not get into what is meant by redeem. Let's say when they spend them, if you like, is going to be a matter for them. I would guess, though, that people will either spend them more or less straight away or not at all. And we know from the summer, the DfE summer scheme, that the take-up was only around 80%, but there's some evidence that more recently other voucher schemes take-up's been a lot higher. In terms of Mark's comment on the out-county situation, this is particularly tricky because it's difficult for us to identify comprehensively those children who live in Hertfordshire and are eligible and receipt of free school meals but educated outside of the county. We haven't got an easy way to do that. As part of vulnerable families, then they will be entitled to try to get support through the other range of offers that we've made, food banks and so on, but we're not set up to give them vouchers directly ourselves. What we are doing, though, is talking to neighbouring local authorities about this problem and establishing whether, in effect, we simply have a reciprocal agreement to deal with each other's eligible children. And I know Juliet's been doing that, I think either Juliet or Felix with Enfield most recently, but I know others. So hopefully we will arrive at a situation where the kind of host authority for the school provides people with vouchers. But on this, I don't think we're going to get a perfect system.
There was one more question I posed, Terry, and that was about, I know we got exactly, but do we have any feel for what this operation is going to cost us?
Oh, yes, sorry, overheads. I wrote that down, sorry. Simon.
Yeah, sorry, Mark, I missed that as well. The government allows for us to claim reasonable administrative costs as part of the scheme, and that includes publicity and payments to third parties. I mean, as you can tell, we're not recruiting people to run it. We're doing it all within our existing resources and so There is a commission payment that we have to make to the voucher provider, and Juliet's been in negotiation with them, and they've come down quite a lot on their original proposition, as we've, not because they're, if you like, trying to make a lot of money out of us, but as we've worked through a more efficient way of making the system work that lowers their costs and lowers our costs. So for the Christmas run, we're confident that our administrative costs will be well below 5% of the cost of the vouchers offered. I don't want to go into specifics yet because we're not in contract with the organisation, and there's an element of commercial confidentiality about it.
Yeah, that was helpful just to give us an indication. Thank you very much, Simon. I wasn't asking for a detailed spreadsheet breakdown, but just a feel for, was it 5%, 15% or whatever? So that's useful. Thank you. That's
Okay,
fine.
thanks, Mark. Thank you. Come back to you later. Judy Billing.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I was just moving the wrong mouse to the wrong machine.
That's all right.
There are so many machines open on my desk at the moment. This is a fantastically complex scheme, and I too would like to add my thanks to the officers who've put so much together in such a very short space of time, when we're all very anxious about food poverty, the number of referrals coming from schools as well as other places to local providers in our district councils as well as county providers. And it's clear that it's going to continue to be complicated and that we cannot have meetings of 36 people constantly looking at the sharp detail of everything that needs to be done. Now, I've read in the report that the intention is that this be taken forward by an officer project team, which is fine, but I'm sure I remember that you mentioned at the full county council meeting last week that you intended to bring back into service the take up of free school meals topic group that had done some very hard work a couple of years ago, and would seem to me an excellent idea. I was surprised not to have been contacted about it since I chaired that group, but would be a very good idea because a lot of the cross-county working that needs to be done between districts, the county, food providers, the schools, could actually also do with some councillor input, but not on the scale that we're meeting in this morning. So I'm a bit surprised not to have seen reference to that in the report for today's meeting, and not to have had very much of a helpful response when contacting both the chair and the lead officer on scrutiny to ask what's happening about it, because I would have expected, as chair of that particular topic group, that it would have been discussed with me. So I hope that idea hasn't been shelved. I don't know whether you said it off the top of your head last week, Terry, and have since regretted it, but I do think it would be a very good move indeed in order to enable a member working group to just keep a friendly, helpful eye on the things that need doing in terms of partnership working across the county as well as the officers.
So Judy, yeah, you know me too well. Yes, it came off the top of my head, but I think it's a jolly good idea anyway, some sort of working together group, and I don't know what. It might be scrutiny, it might not be scrutiny, but there's definitely going to be a piece of work going forward in relation to food poverty and that whole raft of issues that have come above the surface, because it's always been there during COVID. So there will be something. I'm still talking to officers and working through the best way of doing it. Potentially it could work across children's and adults, because obviously, poverty, hardship goes across the whole spectrum. So yes, it was off the top of my head. It was my thinking that particular morning, and I thought, what a jolly good idea, but I didn't think about the consequences. But it's not gone away. Please rest assured on that. Okay, so that's.
Well, could I come back on that very slightly?
Yeah.
Because it was an extremely good off the top of your head idea. That take up a free school meals topic group.
Yeah.
Already contained a widespread of very interested councillors, including Mark Watkin and myself, who speak on these topics for our groups. And I don't know whether you've been slapped down or somebody said go away. That's a really bad way of doing it. But I would ask you to put it to the forefront of your brain again in looking at a friendly and constructive team working way forward.
Yep, don't worry. Not many people slap me down, Judy, so don't worry about that one. It's still at the very forefront of my mind, I can assure you. Yeah, I just wanted to get out the way that sort of the mechanisms for the December sessions, as it were, and then I'll be back onto it. So definitely. Was there a question before that? I apologise. I've got carried away. Was there anything else you wanted any information on?
No, it was really about how we make sure that we maximise the partnership working between the districts and the county and in every other way.
Yep, no, that's definitely being taken forward, so don't worry about that one. Dee Hart, please.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you. My question is, where my division is in Waltham Cross, I actually border the London Borough of Enfield and also Essex. A number of my children actually attend schools in Enfield or Waltham Abbey in Essex. So I hope they will not fall through the net in some way, and maybe officers could look at this. But what I would like to bring up as well is there's also other provisions and support for families and vulnerable households. At the moment, Hearts Help are doing a fantastic job through the council's crisis intervention team. This is a great triage point to help people, to provide them with food, families in crisis, such as energy costs, clothing, white goods, etc. And I'm wondering that when we give our vouchers out to our vulnerable children or children that need free school meals for the Christmas, maybe we can also give out a leaflet just to give them the information for Hearts Help if needed. I wonder if that could be considered, Chairman, please.
Okay, right. So I think, Dee, in relation to your initial question about children who go out of county, I think Simon answered that one. But does anybody else, Juliet, do you want to talk about out of county? Do you have anything you could say about those bordering Broxbourne and Waltham?
No, we'll need to do some work when we have a bit more, when we have well, as soon as possible, we will be contacting those local authorities to confirm and find out what operational systems they are putting in place.
Okay, yeah, so it's on the list to do, Dee. Haven't quite got there yet. Yeah, so in relation to information about what else we're doing, Christy, I'm assuming that is that easily done, or that's out there anyway, isn't it?
I think that is a really good, it is out there, but I think it is a really good suggestion to make sure that we do include that. And thank you very much for recognising the Crisis Intervention Service as delivering. And again, as part of this Winter Support Grant, we will be enhancing that as well further and really making sure that we're doing some targeting and outreach and getting to the right people that need that support. So absolutely, I think you're right. We need to make sure that people know about that wider support, the medium term, longer term. So it's not just about the vouchers, and we will absolutely take that on board.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
thank you.
Right, thank you. Lynn Chesterman.
Thank you, Chair. One comment and then one question. My comment was just when we're talking about perhaps trying to get deliveries. My worry is that delivery charges are quite high. So if we're giving somebody a £15 voucher, quite often some of the delivery charges can be £8. So, and then I can assure you that a lot of the supermarkets you've just mentioned, their Christmas slots have gone. So I think that's something for the future and another discussion elsewhere. My question is, I was surprised that there was and only an 80% take up, meaning a fifth of our kids didn't get the vouchers. Now, having been on the scrutiny for post-COVID, one of the big items that came up, and Judy sort of touched a bit and others, is the fact that there's digital poverty was one of the really big issues for vulnerable people, and for children as well, and for vulnerable families. So I wonder if we do look at something like you were talking about with the free school meals, task and finish group, scrutiny group, whatever it is, if we can try and find out who that 20% are who didn't receive them, and whether it is because of something like digital poverty, or is it, you know, I'd like to know why a fifth of the kids haven't got it. And I think sometimes that's more important than the 80% who we know are getting it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the 80% that Simon referred to is sort of nationwide. That's the figure that's quoted. But there has been evidence that more recently that take up has been much larger. And I think that this Christmas process will give us the up-to-date evidence about take up, and then from that we have the families that we can ask the question of. So it's very difficult if we haven't got the information, the background information ourselves. So we need the evidence. So if somebody doesn't take it up, then we can follow through and ask why not. But that, again, yes, that will be an important piece of work. So who have I got now? Asif. Sorry, excuse me, Asif.
Thank you. I've mentioned before, I think the voucher systems and others have mentioned that they're far from perfect as a system, but you know, it's where we've got the reach. What I'd like to, what I'm interested in, and some of the other councillors have mentioned, is the partnership work with other organisations and charities have actually been helping children and families directly by serving hot food and providing food for these families, and how we develop those relationships further and making sure we don't continue to harness that goodwill that businesses had, that individuals had, that residents associations that donated, that worked. And I think some of them were much more effective than the voucher system, which could be wasted as well. So just ways of where we can work and perhaps fund some of those other groups that have helped, and also, as I said, the businesses and the goodwill that they did. The next point that I made, again, others mentioned that the what Rishi Sunak mentioned this morning about the 2.6 million people projected to be unemployed. Unemployment is going to rise, so we will have new claimants. And there's twofold: is, you know, the budget might not be suffice for those new claimants that may come as a consequence, but more importantly, I think people don't know, if they're new to the system and new to the process, about claiming and getting those vouchers. But I think that support mechanism, that communication is important as well, should people do fall into hard times and require this particular support, that they know that it is available. And for me, I think this needs to be extended further and further, because I don't see a quick end to this economic problem at this particular time.
Okay, thanks. So in relation to working with other groups and extending what we do with them, that is part of what we'll be doing sort of post-Christmas. So we're getting the Christmas tranche out of the way, but at the same time, the Officer Project Group is working on how we can work with, I say, the whole sector, and that's public, private and voluntary, for the benefit of those families in need. New claimants, yep, we're well aware that they're coming, and we're going to have to keep an eye out for them. And as we've already said, the administration has already undertaken to provide free school meals during Easter and the summer half term. Communications indeed are really, really important. And as Christy said, following Dee's comment, we will make sure that all the information we have is shared with as many families as possible. And there will be some communications coming out over the next couple of weeks. And we're extending it further. Yes, well, again, that's again about finance, but we will make sure that at the moment, all of the families in need in the county will be covered, together with the support they've already been receiving. So thank you very much, Asif. I think we all agree with you on this one. The extension, obviously, of this ongoing is another question over the time that's already been allocated by the County Council. Terry Douras.
Thanks, Teresa. I just wanted to share a figure for the Healthy Start food vouchers that have gone, because this is a really successful piece of work and a campaign that's been run. And I pay tribute to our Money Advice Unit, who have been promoting this along with other colleagues, because within the last month, the number in receipt of Healthy Start foods vouchers has gone up from 3,555 to 4,871, and we've got over 60% take up for this, and still there's work to be done to get the message across, but it does go to show how well we have been promoting this, and how well the Money Advice Unit have been offering advice to those folks who have been going to it. I'd also now want to just turn and pay my thanks to the officers who have delivered this piece of work and the paper that we're considering this morning. It seems as though it's months ago that this came to light, but it was only on the 8th at midnight on the 8th of November that the government announced their funding for the winter grant scheme. And since then, officers have been working extraordinarily hard. And I also want to just make the point that, because there's been some reference to vouchers, that they didn't just, and nor did Terry and I, go and say, right, we're going to do vouchers straight from the word go. There were a number of other options which we looked at, or possibilities, shall we say, that we looked at. But with the advice of the officers and with our input as well, both Terry and I, it was felt that the voucher scheme, as you're seeing today, is the best possible solution in the circumstances, and it is the most secure solution in the circumstances. And I think that's one of the reasons for going to schools, because the schools will have the knowledge, will have the linkage with the parent body and the parents and carers, and so they are the most secure way of getting the messages out to the parents and carers. And I think we mustn't underestimate parents and carers, because if there's a message coming out regarding their children, they will be very keen to make sure that they get it, and I'm sure that they will work with the schools. I just talking a word about the four supermarkets, the perhaps the four largest of the supermarkets. That's not to say there aren't other supermarkets available, but I think there is a little bit of a difficulty in actually engaging with some of the others. Perhaps they may not necessarily have the technology. I don't know. But my understanding is that the organisation that's administering the vouchers at this time don't have the connection with some of the other companies that have been mentioned. And that's the capacity perhaps to handle vouchers. We're also looking in certain places, if you take say one particular electoral division, there's 202 children identified for free school meals. Of those, 76 of them are in the town within that particular division. So the others are spread around and it may be that they are in the villages, and it would be helpful and convenient, but sometimes they just have to make that journey into the town to the nearest biggest supermarket. But finally, I would say in advance, I'm going to say thank you to the schools and the school administration staff, because they will be the front line in terms of handling any questions in the initial stage from parents. So thank you to them. I do absolutely appreciate the pressures that they're under, with a whole range of things. And I also appreciate that coming up to Christmas, it's a particularly busy time for them. So, as I say, an advance thank you to them, and also a thank you to everybody working behind the scenes, and some of the folks you've met today, for a huge amount of work that's been done at pace, and with the best interests. And that's what it's all about, the best interests of the families and the children that we have in Hertfordshire. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. Now I have no more hands up, so I'm now going to, if I may, go on to the recommendations. Now, I have been advised in advance that the Labour group would like to put 2 amendments, and I hear that Mark mentioned earlier on that he'd like to put an amendment. Now, Nigel, could I just ask, the wordings that you've sent me, would the sentiment, do you want an actual additional line, or the sentiment of yes, of course, be sufficient?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I mean, if that could just go, I think I've put on there where it should come on 3.
Yeah, no, and because what we're going to have to do is, I'll read this out to colleagues in a moment. We're going to have to debate this and vote on the amendment. So I'm just sort of looking for you to say whether you'd be happy with me saying the sentiment is there, but it's very difficult for me to actually like and put it to the vote, but you know what might happen. Judy.
I just wanted to tell anybody who hadn't heard that I just had a text from the Chief Executive saying we are indeed in Tier 2.
Tier 2. Thank you for interrupting the meeting to tell me that one.
Okay.
So I did know as well. Yes, we are in Tier 2. Thank you very much, Judy. You're detracting from the conversation. So Nigel Watkin. So let me just tell everybody what Nigel has sent through. So the Labour group have asked that they'd like to add to 3.12, the recommendation in 3.12, after where it says 1 million, in quotes, for a further programme of support and details of which will be developed in the light of emerging government advice.
After that.
All right, is that right?
Yes.
Yep, okay. And after that, while this panel welcomes the initial allocation of support, this panel urges the Cabinet to lobby the government to make sure all of our eligible free school meal children in Hertfordshire are properly covered till the end of 2021.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for 3.2, at the end of that, again, this panel welcomes and notes the further, sorry, no, hang on.
0.9 million.
Yeah, so you're changing the wording completely, isn't it? So this panel welcomes and notes the further 0.49 million available for further allocation, but calls on the Cabinet to prioritise resources so that this funding is urgently added to, in the light of yesterday's statement by the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the rise in unemployment, which will inevitably lead to a rise in child poverty in Hertfordshire. So basically, you're asking Cabinet to prioritise more funding towards families in need.
Yes, especially after the Chancellor's statement yesterday.
Okay. Nigel Quinton's asking that the wording be shared in chat or via screen share. Ooh, I've sent this to officers. If you want to screen share, officers, that would be really quite useful. Are you able to do that, guys?
Terry, before you, well, not before that screen shared, but would it be appropriate to hear what Mark Watkins?
Yeah, no, I'm going to do that. So that's on the screen. So officers have shared that. So Mark, do you want to let us know what your proposal is, and then we can debate both?
Yes, ours is slightly more straightforward. Ours is simply to put in a recommendation 3.4, which is to require officers to report back to the next Children's Services panel on the performance of the scheme as they can see, as it will have been. Well, I haven't got the wording exactly right here, but the performance of the scheme up to that time, and also the plans for the county's own scheme following on from March the 31st.
Okay, well, in relation to that one, Mark, I can assure you that is what's going to come up at the next meeting. And I was going to say at the end of this meeting that there will be another joint meeting on the 27th of January to deal with reporting back on the Christmas school meals and also reporting on the holiday activities to come. So that whole raft of other stuff that we're doing. So I would hope that we don't need a motion to do that, and that's taken, that would be proper business that I would call for.
Okay, that's great, Terry, just that reassurance.
Is that all right? Yeah, so that's there. So I was going to come to that later, but yeah, definitely 27th January, I was going to advise you at the end of the meeting. Okay. So, okay, that's lovely. So thank you. So we have those two amendments. Oh gosh, it's a long time since I've had this thrown at me at my panel. So, so we will debate the amendments, please. So Nigel, would you like to? I'm assuming this is. Are you proposing and somebody seconding?
Yeah, I can propose. I can propose the. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah, I can propose these two, and one of my colleagues, Judy, will probably second it.
Okay.
She will indeed. She will indeed.
Thank you. Great. To do it, do you have to do things properly, don't we?
Yep.
Okay. So.
Okay. So,
Nigel.
do you want me to read out again, or just say?
No, because they're on the screen. Everybody's got it. So.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak?
Yeah, it's just to make sure, obviously, with the first one, to make sure that as we feel and as everyone feels that we should make sure that all our children have free school meals covered till the end of next year. So that should be sent to Cabinet for Cabinet to lobby the government. And again at 3.2, but in light of the Chancellor's statement yesterday, confirming, as we all knew, that the unemployment is going to go up, and that's inevitably going to lead to a rise in child poverty in Hertfordshire as well as the country, that again, calling on the Cabinet to lobby, the County Cabinet to lobby the government again for more resources for the county. I think that's straightforward, really, both of them.
Okay, thank you. Judy, do you want to have a right of reply at the moment, or would you like to?
I think the thing speaks for itself, so I will retain my right to reply if I need to.
Okay, thank you. Right, let me get back into the right screen. Apologies, it's quite difficult to follow. So, is there anybody that'd like to speak on the amendments? Graham McAndrew.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Looking at the screen, it says added to 3.12, yeah, and after it says £1 million, if we go right along to the end of the sentence, emerging government evidence, I have guidance in my document.
Yeah, it's guidance in the motion, yes.
So are we changing guidance to evidence, or it would be good if we could have the amended version put up on the screen in its entirety?
Yes.
It's on the screen, Graham. So the email I received from Nigel is on the screen. So
to be added, is that coming after it says evidence? So I've taken that evidence is guidance, then it goes on to, well, this panel, etc.
Yeah, somebody's taken the words down. Could you put the words back up, please? Sharing.
I think if I may, Terry, there's two 2 points here. One is to clarify whether the word should be evidence or guidance, and then the second one is whether we're adding that extra.
Yeah, so officers, could you put the words back up, please? I know they're small, but we can't do much about that.
Terry, I'm trying, but Michael Muir's trying to take control of my screenshot.
Michael Muir, please could you stop?
Yes, sorry about that.
Sharing.
I'll cease that.
Yeah, can you cease doing whatever you were doing? Can we any good officers?
Hi Terry, it's Stephanie. While we're waiting for Michelle to put them back up, I've just looked at the original recommendation, and double I should say guidance at the end, not evidence.
Yeah, it is. It does. Yes. It does on the recommendation. So Nigel, should it say guidance or should it say? Did you want to change it to evidence?
I'm happy with guidance then.
Okay, fine. So if we could have those words back up again. It's very difficult when we get these things in late, especially in this forum. So
it's not allowing me to share it again. Just bear with me.
All about eligible free school.
Chair, I've added it to the chat if anybody wants to see.
Who said that? Nigel? Was that Nigel?
Asif.
Asif.
Oh, Asif.
It's back on, Teresa.
Oh, we're back on again now. Thank you. So.
I have to say that I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. I was under the clear understanding that that was the intention of the government, that there was perhaps not, well, to make sure that there should be no food hunger during holidays until the end of 2021.
Yeah, so we have the funding that's going to come via the school activities, holiday activities funding, which we're working on, and we'll report to you in January where we've got to on that. So that's why I'm asking you if we're to debate this one really. Do we have anybody else that wants to? So at the moment, I think it is that welcomes So what is the actual final wording of the motion you want, Nigel, on 312?
On 312, on the first one,
yeah,
you're all right with that then, where it says, while this panel welcomes the initial allocation of support, this panel urges the Cabinet to lobby the government to make sure all of our eligible free school meals children are properly covered till the end of 21 next year. If Terry is saying he thinks that they are anyway, fine, but I just thought this makes it more watertight that we're saying that. I don't see why we can't still put this down. This, if Terry is saying, well,
yes, you can. I'm just trying to understand how you are amending that little two. So at the moment it reads to an initial allocation. So so the starters, the joint cabinet panel is asked to note and comment upon the report and recommend to cabinet that cabinet agrees to an initial allocation of £1 million for a further programme of support, the details of which will be developed in the light of emerging government guidance.
Okay.
Okay. And did you want to add to that? What did you want?
What I've got underneath, my quote there underneath, to be added while this panel
so full stop.
That.
While this. Okay. So we're just adding those words at the end of that recommendation.
That's what I mean, to be added to that. And then this panel urges the Cabinet to lobby the government, etc., to make sure it is covered. All free school meals children are covered until the end of next year.
Right. Sorry, I wasn't totally clear on what we were doing. Okay, that's fine. And in 3.2,
the panel welcomes and notes the further 0.49 million available for further allocation, but calls on the Cabinet to prioritise resources so that this funding is urgently added to in the light of yesterday's statement by the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the rise in unemployment, which will inevitably lead to a rise in child poverty in Hertfordshire.
Okay. Does anybody else? Oh, I've got some more hands up here. So, I hadn't called you yet, had I, Graham? Did I call you, or did you coming back?
No, you didn't call me. I was just sort of trying to understand the 3.2 because
okay. I think we're clearer then.
We're doing what I think he says, but he just.
Yeah. So the two amendments are adding to the end of the current recommendations. In 3.12, there's the words are added at the end, and in 3.2, the words are added to the end of the recommendation. Mark Watkin.
Thank you very much, Derek. Well, we certainly support the first, and my group is confused by the second, I'm afraid, so we're trying to make some sense of it. Wow. There's some clarification. I think what it's asking Cabinet to recommend is that the county provides further resources or increased resources for these vulnerable families. It's a lengthy piece of work, text, and it's hard to make sure exactly where the direction of recommendation is going on this one. But in principle, the first one seems perfectly sensible, and why would you object to it? And the second one, please can they clarify so that we have a better understanding as to what's being proposed?
Okay, Terry Duras.
I think if we're going to go with the first one, and my previous comments still stand, before the word while, I think you probably need the word and, so that it would read
So I didn't say we were going with it. We're going to go to vote on these ones. So
sorry?
We're going to go to vote on these. So I didn't say we were going with it.
No, yes, okay, fine.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, no, okay. I think the second one, frankly, my view would be that it's premature, and if there was going to be a discussion on it, bearing in mind that the purpose of this particular meeting today is to consider the winter grant scheme rather than anything going forward from that. If there was going to be a discussion, then it would be better served at the meeting on the 27th of January, but not today.
Yeah. So I mean, colleagues,
there
we
is
will
also,
go.
sorry, Terry. Even if we were to go with the second one today, when I say go with, discuss it, it's confusing because it says in the first line the further 0.49 million available. Well, in fact, the 0.49 million is actually not further, it's actually embedded in the 2.49 million pounds, which is already available, therefore it can't be further.
Yeah, okay. What I will say, so what I will say is if these amendments fall, I will report back to Cabinet this afternoon what has been said at this meeting, so Cabinet will can consider it then if they wish to. Okay. So as I have no more hands up, I'm now going to vote on the amendments. I'll take them together unless I hear anything to the contrary from anybody. Mark?
Terry, to be honest with you, we're perfectly happy with the first and we don't really understand the second. And so I would like us to take each one separately.
No, I was waiting for you to say that. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I was waiting for you to say that. Fine. OK, so we'll take the amendment to 3.1.2 as on the screen. You are voting in the chat box. Can I remind you, it's voting in the chat box. Could you vote now, please?
Excuse me for interrupting, Terry.
Yeah.
But I have a problem. My chat box has disappeared and I've got a message up saying request control and I don't know what's happened to the screen. I'm voting in favour of Amendment 1.
Okay, I can't actually see my chat box at the moment, so.
Terry, Michael Muir, I've got the same thing on my screen as Terry Duras has. So I will vote the same way as Terry.
It's Ron Tyndall, Michael.
Oh, Ron,
Ron,
sorry.
That's Ron.
You might now be able to get your chat box because I've stopped sharing that document.
Okay, there we are. Chat box is open now.
It's still not appearing. Sorry.
You're voting for though, Ron, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Good news about your eye.
Could somebody turn off their microphone, please? There's a lot of background disturbance. Right, I think. Has everybody voted? Doesn't look like it.
It's Michael Muir. I still haven't got the chat box up to vote.
Okay, so could you just say how you want to vote, please?
I will follow the Conservative group.
Okay, so that's against. Okay. All right, so Stephanie is telling me that the majority is against. Okay, thank you very much. So that amendment falls. The second amendment is on 3.2. And that was basically, I think, calling upon Cabinet to prioritise resources so that its funding is urgently added to in light of yesterday's statement by the Chancellor, i.e. Asking for Cabinet to provide more funding. Oh, there, it's back on the screen now. Okay. Great. So could I ask you to vote for, against or abstain? And if you're able to see your chat box, vote in it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Terry, Ron Tyndall again. I'll abstain on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can't get to my box.
Chairman, Dave Hewitt here. My box is continually covered by these blue boxes.
Yeah, shut them down, Dave, and then vote. Wait till they've all finished, and then we'll give you, because I've got to shut them down before I can vote as well. So that's fine.
Yeah, I have managed to shut them down. They tend to pop up quicker than I can shut them down.
I know the feeling.
Terry, just one tip actually. If you just click on, if you tip on the reply bottom at the very bottom, and then put in your words, it does go into the actual chat area.
Okay,
So
well, I think I've done it now.
As soon as it says reply, just put in what you want to say and it will appear underneath. That's what I just did.
Okay, Mark, that's useful. Thank you very much. All these new tricks all the time. Thank you.
Also, if you put your cursor in the top pane, the black line at the top, you can drag the entire box away from those blooming things in the right hand corner.
Oh, okay.
You can drag the entire picture, the entire Teams screen away from it.
Okay.
I will be going to Richard Tape for all my computer expertise from now on.
Tip. There we go.
He
All
will
right,
charge you, Judy.
So
You may well.
officers have indicated that that amendment has fallen as well. So thank you for everybody for that. Now we move to the substantive, and those are the recommendations set out in paragraph 2 of the report, which hopefully you all have in front of you. Do you wish me to read out the recommendations?
Terry, sorry to interrupt you. It's paragraph 3, the recommendations.
Have I got the wrong? Sorry. That's what I was thinking. I was looking at the number. I've got my agenda written here, so that's obviously typo on the agenda. Let me just get this in front of me. Sorry, I've opened up the document now. Sorry, yes, so it's paragraph 3 recommendations, and it's 3 point, well, the recommendations are there. So does anybody require me to read them out?
No, thank you.
Right, okay, thank you for somebody telling me. No, okay, so the recommendations are as set out in the report. Could I ask you to vote now? For, against, or abstain?
Terry Rontinder again, voting for. Do I still have
thanks.
got the chat box?
Okay, fine, thanks, Ron. Confounded things. Okay, I think we've all finished voting. Oh, no, we haven't. Right, so that has been passed. Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. Thank you. Can I say once again, I'll give our thanks to the officers who have been working assiduously on this project since we had the full information. They've done remarkably well, and we're all very, very grateful. So thank you very much indeed. The final part of the meeting is, and I do rest assured, I will report what's gone on today at Cabinet this afternoon, as will Terry. Just to say now, we haven't any other business, but the next meeting of this joint panel will take place on Wednesday, the 27th of January at 10 a.m. To discuss holiday activities and food schemes, as well as an update on the information on the winter grant, which we've been discussing today. So there'll be a full update about what's gone on over the holidays, as much feedback as we can possibly get. And that's why we brought it to the end of the month of January. And then by then we should have some solid information about activities and food schemes during the Easter, summer and Christmas 2021. As colleagues have been asking about how we're working with partners, because that's going to be exceptionally important in this next phase when we consider how many children we have to provide activities for. So thank you very much for your perseverance this morning.
Okay, can I just make a comment, if you don't mind? It's not working. It's only a brief comment. I just want to say I felt this morning's meeting was a really useful piece of scrutiny by members. I think a number of points came up that officers, obviously, in trying to cover everything, may not have considered, and I just thought it was well worthwhile. So thank you for putting it into the calendar, and I think it proved to be really productive.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yes, thank you. It was a good debate. Nigel.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair, just to say, echo what Mark says, but also one doesn't want to interrupt the officers in the next couple of weeks because they're going to be obviously very hard and a lot to do. But if we could be kept up to date and even through your office as to how this project is going, obviously we'd appreciate that when we can, because obviously we're going to be getting questions from residents, and if there are queries, then we'd be grateful if that can be followed up, but totally understanding the difficulty officers are under and the workload. But obviously I'm sure you and Terry, both you Terrys, will be able to follow up. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would have thought in about a week's time we'll be able to give a paper written briefing to all members of the council about what's happening, at least, so they know before the vouchers are sent out to schools.
Thank you.
They'll tell me if I've said it wrong. Thinking off the top of my head again. Judy.
Chair, did you say 27th of January?
Yes. That's a Wednesday.
Okay, slight problem, because 27th of January is actually Holocaust Memorial Day. And so some of us may be taking part in some fairly important activities across the county and on Zoom and stuff, and may have to be dipping in and out of such a meeting. So I'd just flag that up for thought, really.
Okay. Well, we did consider lots of dates, but that was actually the only slot that was available in the diary. So I'm sorry about that one, Judy. Obviously, I don't think we can even change the time of day. We can start the meeting earlier. We can start it at 9:30 if that's any use. Would that be?
Madam Chair, most of the activities for Holocaust are in late afternoon or evening.
Are they?
There's very little go on in the morning.
Well, obviously, Judy's got something. So we'll start the meeting at 9:30. The report that will be going out to members in advance will be a lot fuller than the report you receive for this meeting. So a lot of the information will be provided for in advance. Yeah. Okay, Terry Duras, thank you.
Well, I don't know whether Alan Plancy has still got a legacy hand up, because he did have it up. So
He just said something. It's all right.
Has he finished now?
Alan said that most events he thought were in the afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. I was just going to add that. Okay. I was just going to add that the information that's being asked for by Mark and others and everybody, I suspect that will probably go out via the bulletin that John Birch does, which is probably the best way of getting it out, because that seems to be the favoured way for people to receive the information.
Yes, thank you for that.
We'll make sure that officers know that they'll feed him.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. So thank you very much, everybody. Look, just finished just before the two-hour cut-off point, so that's really good. So thank you very much. And can I take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy Christmas if I don't see you all before? So keep well and keep safe. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye all. Merry Christmas.
Goodbye.